Welcome to the Sales Lead Dog Podcast, hosted by CRM technology and sales process expert Christopher Smith, talking with sales leaders that have separated themselves from the rest of the pack. Listen to find out how the best of the best achieve success with their team and CRM technology. And remember, unless you are the lead dog, the view never changes.
Welcome to Sales Lead Dog. Joining me today, I'm very excited to have this guest here, Jeffrey Goldstein of Q Associates. Jeff is the managing director of Q Associates. Jeff, welcome to Sales Lead Dog.
Hey, glad to be here and happy we were able to meet last year at the Microsoft Summit conference, and very happy for that introduction.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you on the show. Jeff, tell me a bit about Q Associates.
Sure. So Q Associates is a Microsoft Dynamics partner specializing in the ERP implementation of enterprise resource planning, accounting, and financial systems. And we've been doing it for quite a while. We've been doing it since 1992. And while we like to think that we're very experienced, every day we're learning new things as the industry changes. So we're always striving to keep up with the latest and greatest. And we're leveraging Microsoft and riding on Microsoft's coattails. So as Microsoft comes out with state-of-the-art technology, we're following in their footsteps, and we try to be leaders as far as the adoption of technology for our organization, so that we can provide that technology to our customers.
Yeah, and AI, especially with Microsoft Copilot, is such a hot topic right now. How do you see that influencing what you guys are doing in the ERP space?
Oh, it has tremendous influence, and we feel that this is a game changer, especially for, Microsoft. It's a differentiating factor, and our customers are constantly looking for ways to become more efficient so that they can beat their competition, and this is one way that they can. So AI and Microsoft Copilot is helping our customers be much more efficient and beating and staying ahead of their competition.
Yeah, my world was CRM. I truly feel like with what Microsoft is doing with AI, they're redefining what CRM is going to be over the next 3 to 5 years. That I think they're actually probably going to have to come up with a new term, because CRM of old just isn't going to apply anymore. And I imagine it's going to be the same in the ERP space.
No, absolutely, because no longer do you have to know where things are, how to find them. You're just going to type in English like sentences to be able to perform your tasks, and the system's going to do it for you, automatically. So while back in the old days when you used to have to use green bar paper and you had to know your debits and credits and where to put the numbers in the right columns, and the systems have made it more efficient so that people didn't need to understand their debits and credits. Now it's going to be even easier because the system's going to automatically take things and post them to the appropriate, categories based on English like commands that you tell the system, which is, great. And it's going to lead to more efficient ways to be able to enter the data, post the data, and make sure that the data is accurate.
Yeah, it really is. It's mind-boggling what they're doing. Jeff, when you look back over your career, you've been doing this a long time. If you could sum it down to three things, what would those three things be that have really driven and led to the success that you've achieved?
Right. Number one, it's the people. So I'm only as good as the people that I have working for us, right? So they're the ones who make me look good. So it's always people, people first. So we've been very successful at not only finding good talent, but also retaining good talent. So we have people who've been with us in excess of 25 years, very close to 30 years, which is unheard of, in our industry. And, we have very little, turnover. And those are the ones that are leading the way and mentoring the young people. So it's always getting that right mix of older senior people with experience, and then you want the younger trendsetters who are not afraid to adopt the new technology, but to implement it based on best practices learn from the senior level, people. So the number one, it's the people. Next is, working with a good vendor. So, Microsoft has been a great vendor to us. It's been responsible for our success. If it wasn't for, following in Microsoft's, footsteps and staying ahead of the technology, we would never be where we were, today. So like 10 years ago when they were telling us, hey, listen, you need to build recurring revenue, you need to build a cloud business, we jumped in with both feet. We said, okay, we're going to learn this, right? And we wanted to stay ahead of the curve. And it was a good thing that we did this. So, back in the, and for ERP was introduced late into the cloud. And that was, basically in 2016, while the MSPs were already, 3-4 years into the cloud business. But, we started with the adoption of BPOS, right, which ended up being, Office Online and then Microsoft 365. So we said, listen, whatever the technology is, we want to learn it. We want to be the first to learn it so that, we're not backpedaling, that we're always ahead of the curve and not behind the curve. So number one, it was the employees. Number two is partnering, with the right vendor and following in their footsteps. And then number three, it's really the customers, and customers are really responsible for our success. And thank God we've had, customers who've been very loyal and dedicated and have been with us for, 30 years, and we treat them like their family and we take care of them very well.
That's tremendous. That's tremendous. Think back to when you were just getting started in your career. Um, what did you want to do? Did you have a vision that's dramatically different from what you're doing today?
Absolutely. So, if I were to do it all over again, would I do it the same way? No, I'd, do it differently. And, as much as, you get taught to plan and you like to plan, sometimes you have to follow the road and where the road takes you. And opportunities will come up along your, career path during your career. And you just got to follow the road that you think is best based on your, intuition. So where I thought I was going to be and where I started and where I ended up being, were two different things. So I never thought I would be a business owner, never thought I would have, such a large responsibility, but things came and presented the opportunities, and I took advantage of the opportunities. I said, listen, if I don't take advantage of this, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life. So I'm going to try it. And if it's successful, great. If it's not, then I'll go in a different, direction. But I didn't grow up saying, hey, listen, I want to be a business owner. That's exactly what I didn't want to be. And one of the things that I didn't want to get into was, sales. I always despised salespeople. I hated salespeople. I never wanted to be a salesperson. And very early on in the 1990s, my former partner said, Jeff, you have to be the salesperson for our organization. I said, I don't want to do sales. I hate sales. I hate salespeople. They go, but you're the best at it, so you have to do it. So first thing I did was signed up for a Dale Carnegie class and said, all right, well, if I'm going to do this, I have to learn how to do it the right way. And, the rest was history. So it worked out well, worked out in our, favor. And now I love to sell. But I sell based on my knowledge, my experience, and what I know. And when you walk into a room and when you meet with someone, they know right away whether you've done this before, whether whether you're talking about, just by the questions you ask. So I don't believe in, although I sell, I don't sell, right? I don't sell by selling. I sell by, consulting with our, customers. And I treat them as if I say, listen, I'm going to make the same recommendation for you that I would for my own family as if it was a family business. And that's the recommendation I'm going to make for you. I'm not going to recommend anything less. I'm not going to recommend anything more. I'm going to do for you what I would do for myself. And people appreciate that, right? You don't undersell them. You don't oversell them. You just sell them exactly what is right. And you make that recommendation.
Yeah. How did that evolve? I mean, were you always like that in terms of your approach to selling, or is that something that evolved as you got more experience in selling?
Well, listen, I learned in the very old days that from the ground up, so I used to install operating systems. I used to pull cables through ceilings. We used to run the local area networks. I started with Novell 211, Novell
Oh
311,
my God, you're taking me
a
back.
stack of floppy disks and putting them in the machine and doing it. So pretty much everything that everybody does for our organization I've done one way or another, right? So I always tell people, I'll never ask you to do anything that I haven't already done before and that I wouldn't do myself and that I can't do myself. So I'm very hands-on. And, when you are hands-on and you grow up and you learn things by, doing implementations and, sometimes unfortunately, failing, but they're learning it the right way to do it, that experience comes across. And then based on that, I put myself in the place of the, customer. I say, listen, if I were the customer, what are my expectations? What would I expect? And I would do for them what I would expect them to do for us. Same thing.
So as you started to grow, you had to build a sales team. What was that experience like in the early days of building your team?
It was very difficult, obviously. So salespeople are always great, and typically what happens is they're great at selling themselves, but they can't sell anything else. So it's very difficult to find professional salespeople. So we always found the best way to do it is to train them, right? So we take people who are competent, people who are consultants, people who know the products, know the systems, know the industries, right, and then just teach them some of the appropriate sales techniques and put them through training like I did, like Dale Carnegie. We've been through Sandler training. I've gone through probably almost every sales training, professional program that you could ever, imagine. And I take the best from what I believe, all of them, and put them together to create my own, sales methodology. And listen, nobody wants to be sold, including myself. So I don't sell people. We, like I said before, we make recommendations, and we make recommendations based on our experience, and we would do for them what we would expect them to do for us, or for someone else to do, for anyone else in the industry. So, we take the people who have the aptitude, and we find out who those are very early on, and then we train them. And a lot of them come out of the marketing profession. So we hire people to do, marketing, and then we have them qualifying leads and opportunities. They're using, the Microsoft CRM system, Microsoft Dynamics 365 sales, and we find out which ones have an aptitude. And then, we have them shadow the salespeople, put them through training programs, and then turn them into salespeople.
How long do you have them shadow to really get that depth? Is it the same for everybody, or do you base that on the individual?
It's based on the individual. Certain people pick it up quicker than others, right? But it's really, learning, the products, the systems, and what we're selling. So the easiest thing for them to learn how to sell are systems that they're currently working with and that they understand. So one of the things that we do, Chris, is we use all of the Microsoft software in-house, because we're a firm believer that, if you're going to recommend it and if you're going to sell it, you need to know how to use it yourself. So every piece of Microsoft software that is possible to be purchased, we purchase it when it comes out, and we encourage our people to learn it. And we did that when Copilot came out. We did that when CRM came out. We used it for ERP. So every single piece of software, and like I mentioned before early on, BPOS, was it the best product? Absolutely not, but we knew we had to learn it, right? And then BPOS became Office 365, became Microsoft 365, and by the time it became Microsoft 365, all our people were very fluent, in the product. And when a client asks you, what do you recommend for certain situations, they're going to recommend what they use every day, right? And then they're not, and they can speak intelligently about it. So the best thing to do is to use the software that you recommend to your clients, and that's where you establish credibility right away.
Yeah, I think that having that depth of product knowledge is critical to establishing credibility, as well as accountability for the recommendations you're making, regardless of what industry or what it is you may be selling. You have to understand the ins and outs, the pros and cons, because no product is perfect. Everything has deficiencies, areas where maybe it's not the best for the customer. Maybe, it might be a portion that, hey, this part's not going to work that well. If you don't understand the product, you're not going to have that knowledge of where things might go wrong. Right?
Absolutely. And the only way you understand it is through experience and by using it every day. So you learn the good, the bad, and everything else associated with it. And we're honest with our customers. We'll tell them what the strength is of the product. We'll tell it where maybe it might not be so strong, but we understand, what the overall value is and why we're recommending it. And, Microsoft as a total solution, using one integrated platform is going to be superior to everybody else. However, if you look at each application individually and go with a best of breed approach, or you may not win every battle, and that's not where we're going to win. And we explain that the different philosophies to our customers, saying, hey, do you want to go with a fully integrated system, one system made by one software manufacturer with it, where everything works seamlessly out of the box and you don't have to do integrations? Or do you want to go best of breed and I want the best sales module, I want the best marketing module, I want the best field service module, I want the best customer service module? Now you have five of the best modules in the world, but they don't talk to each other, right?
Yeah.
So what's more valuable? What's more
Yeah.
valuable?
I'm a big believer in, I mean, I totally get this whole best of breed approach. I get it. I understand it.
Mhm,
But there's a true cost to that approach.
mhm.
Those are systems that are not designed to work together, which creates a lot of headaches.
Right.
Beyond just integration, just from getting out of the technology side of it, you have to look at this from a business process flow. When you have these disparate applications that are not designed to work together, what do you have to do from a business process perspective to now make this stuff work? That's to me where the real challenge is, and to have a system that, hey, maybe it's not 100% in every area, but if you get to 80%, that 20% can be impacted or reduced in a bunch of different ways at a lot less of a risk than I think of the best of breed approach. What are your thoughts on,
No,
if I'm a sales leader and I'm thinking about like, hey, how should I go about this? What's your approach on that conversation you're having with the leader?
we absolutely agree. And we tell our customers and prospects, if you're looking for best of breed, we're not the best vendor, okay? Because we work with one vendor, we selected the best, we work with Microsoft. If you want one integrated, fully integrated solution, hey, we're the partner to work with. If you're looking for a best of breed approach, then we're not the best partner to work with. And that's simply it. And, each customer prospect has their own philosophy as to whether they want one fully integrated system or they want to go best of breed. And if they do want to go best of breed, we may not be the best vendor for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big believer. I really try to be, when I'm working with a customer, that like, you have to be in that advisor role that, look, I'm going to tell
Right.
you the pros and cons of each. I'm not going to blow smoke, because ultimately I'm going to have to be accountable. If you say, hey, Chris, we're going to go with your recommendations, you got to be able to back it up. Bottom
No,
line.
absolutely. And me and you have been doing this long enough that we want happy customers. And
Yeah.
if you convince someone of something that they really don't want, they're not going to be happy at the end of the day. And we don't
Yeah.
want customers that are not happy. So, and there's no right answer or wrong answer. It's just which ones are the best fit for,
Right.
what were the solutions that we're providing. So,
Yeah.
we love Microsoft. We're a Microsoft partner for a reason. We're 100% Microsoft focused. We don't sell any of their competitive, solutions. We sell some complementary solutions, but we're 100% Microsoft. We feel that we're going to be the best at one solution, learn it, and become the experts. And that's it. We're not going to dilute ourselves.
Yeah. I think you guys have a tremendous culture at Q Associates. Can you talk to me about how you, as a leader, you've gone about creating, establishing, and continuing to maintain and grow the culture you've been able to create?
Yeah, well, it's all based on work ethic. So nobody in the organization works harder than me. And after 33 years, I should be slowing down, but I'm actually speeding up. So I'm working harder than I ever have in my entire life. But, I enjoy it. I like it too much. In fact, I was at a company event in December. It was a holiday party, and I sat next to one of our newer employees, and they said, Jeff, what are you doing here? You could sell your business and you could be sitting on the beach right now, having a cocktail and not worrying about all this. I said, David, do I look like the type of guy who could sit on the beach for longer than 15 minutes? I said,
Your leg would be twitching, your arm would be twitching.
right. I said, listen, I'd rather be working than sitting on the beach. I'd rather be working than playing golf. To me, playing golf is torture, right? I'd rather be working. At least it's something that I'm good at. I don't like to do things that I'm not good at, right? So,
Right.
and that's just the reality. That's what I love to do, and then that sets the culture because when people see, the way I work and the love for the business and the love for the industry and the work ethic, it trickles down and they see it and it's contagious. It's contagious. They all want to be there. They all want to support me. They're all like, Jeff, you got to slow down. Jeff, you got to slow down. I go, there's no time to slow down. Okay. So I just got to keep going. So they're working hard to try to make my life easier, and it's all part of being a team, right?
What do you consider to be some of the most important lessons that you've learned about leadership that you could share with our listeners?
Well, you lead by example, right? So, they're watching you all the time. While you may not know it or realize it, they're watching your actions, how you act, what you do, how you do it. And I tell people, listen, no matter how bad things are, every day I wake up, I have to have a smile on my face. I have to get on camera. I have to come to the office and I have to be in a good mood. I can't come into the office and say, oh my God, what am I doing? I can't believe I'm doing this. I can't do this anymore because that is, it's contagious. People see that. So it is uh it's something that the people can very easily sense. So every morning I know every day is a different day, and I get problems every single day. I don't know what that problem is when I wake up. When I wake up, I'll find out what those problems are, right? And you can't overreact. You have to handle it just in a very professional way, just like you would handle any other problem. No matter how bad it may seem, it's never as bad as you think it is. And it took years to get to the point where you have that sense of urgency, but you don't panic and you don't overreact. So I tell people, listen, every day I wake up, I have to have a smile on my face. I have to be happy. I have to love what I do. And as bad as it may seem that day, I can't let it bother me, because if it bothers me, then it's going to trickle down, and it's going to trickle down to the employees, and then they're not going to be motivated. So I have to be excited about what I do every single day, day in and day out, regardless of what surprises I have in front of me.
Yeah, I do believe that's a decision. It's a choice.
Hmm.
That you have to choice. You have to have that choice of being, like you said, happiness. I call it being joyful.
Yeah.
It's being appreciative of what we have, the blessings we have in our life. And I mean, it's so easy to get wrapped around the axle about things that are going wrong, but it becomes like an energy all on its own if you go down that path,
Hmm.
and so I'm a big believer in just like choose that path of being joyful, of being happy, because it is contagious. Fake it until you make it. You can call it whatever you want, but I think that you have to act with intention towards those, that side of the equation versus the negative side.
Yeah, and then the other thing, Chris, is I tell my employees, I say, listen, if you make a mistake, tell me. Okay, don't lie, don't try to cover up. The sooner you tell me, the better we can, help each other, right? So, if you make a mistake, call me, say, hey, Jeff, listen, I made a mistake. I should have done this. I did this. Okay, help me, and I'll help them. Okay, but then when they try to cover it up or bury it, or if they lie about it, that makes things worse, and nothing gets me more upset as that. So I tell people, listen, don't lie. If you make a mistake, come to me right away. The sooner you come to me, the quicker we can correct it, right? And then the other thing I tell them is the worst thing you could do is nothing. I said, if I'm not around and you need to make a decision, whether it's right or wrong. Don't not make a decision. The worst thing you could do is not make a decision or freeze, right?
Right.
If a client contacts you and say, so I have a problem, how do I fix this? And if you don't know the answer and you don't respond, that's the worst thing you could possibly do. You're better off responding and saying, I don't know, but I'll find out. At
Right.
least respond. At least respond.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time for people to learn that. And I tell people, listen, if you don't understand, say you don't understand. You'll
Yeah.
get more credibility by telling someone that you don't understand than sitting there shaking your head and saying, okay, I got it, I got it. And if you don't have it, it's going to be worse because it's going to escalate, right? And at the end of the day, you're going to end up producing a solution that's incorrect. So if you don't understand, you politely say, "Hey, listen, can you say that again? I'm not sure I have it." There's nothing wrong with saying that. That's better than
Right.
delivering a solution that's not correct. So those are some of the lessons, and you learn that from experience, right? Nobody wants to be the guy in the room that says, "I don't understand. I'm stupid," right?
Right.
Listen, you're only stupid if you don't say that, right?
Oh, I
So
agree.
Yep. If you make a mistake, the sooner you say you make a mistake, the better it is. The sooner we can correct that, mistake, and then make a decision. Don't freeze. Don't do nothing. The worst thing you could do is nothing. If you do nothing, that's the worst thing you could possibly do. And listen, if you make a decision and it's wrong, at least now you learn next time you're going to do it a different way, right?
That's right. You have to own it. And to me, so that at the root of what you're talking about is making yourself vulnerable.
Yep.
And like nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. Nobody has all the answers. There's always going to be times when the appropriate answers, like you said, I don't know, but I'll find out. That's making yourself vulnerable both internally and externally to the customer. People appreciate that. That's all they're asking for is like, look, don't BS me. We'll
Hmm.
figure this out together. Just don't BS me along the way. Right.
Right. Right, right. I tell my people, I say, listen, I always hire people that are smarter than me, right? Because that's a
Yeah.
smart, right? Because you're going to make me look smart. And I always tell people, I say, listen, the only thing I have over you is experience. And one day when you get the experience, you're going to be better than me. But that's what I want. I want you to be
Yeah.
better than me. So, you're younger, smarter, more. You learn the technology quicker than I do. The only thing I have is experience. But my experience can save you a lot of time and a lot of mistakes. And what took me 30 years to learn, you can learn that in half the time, a third of the time, a quarter of the time, because I could tell you which mistakes not to make that I unfortunately made, but they were learning lessons because there was nowhere near to teach me. So I had to teach myself.
Do you ever share the failures you've had or the mistakes, whatever term you want to use? Do you ever share those on a proactive basis with your employees?
No, but I will bring them up as examples when certain situations, occur. When I see a situation, I say, "Hey, listen, I've seen this before. This is what's going to happen. Don't
That's
fall
actually
into
what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't fall into this trap. Okay, let's just cut it off right here. Okay, because I see where this is going. I know exactly. I've seen this. I've seen this movie before. I know where we're going. And as much as you think that you can fix it, you can't fix it. Let's just, let's just end it right here. I know exactly what's going to happen. And those are some of the things that you and I know only from experience. You can never predict it until you've been through it, and then after you've been through it, you say, why didn't I see that? I can't believe
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
so stupid and I didn't see that
Yeah.
coming. That's
Yeah. I think one of the hardest things for young salespeople to learn is when to identify that, hey, this customer's not a right fit for us.
oh
How do you tackle that as part of their learning of developing people and in their, to avoid that trap?
Yeah, no, listen, and when you're younger and when I first started out, I wanted to win every deal, right?
Right.
And you want to win every deal. But there's some deals that you don't want to, there's some deals you don't want to win. But by the same token, you don't want to discourage people, especially when they're, younger. So sometimes I'll tell people, I'll say, listen, okay, if you want to go for this deal, you can go for this deal. It may not be the best deal, but go for it. Listen, if you don't win it, I'm not losing any sleep over it. So go for it. If you think you can win it, go ahead, but don't be nervous. We're not going to lose any sleep over this. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. We go on to the next thing. Because I know we could do it, but it may not be the best fit and it may not be worth the effort. But if you want to prove to yourself that you can win the deal, by all means, go ahead, but don't get discouraged if you lose it. And then there's other times where I say, listen, this is really isn't a great fit. Let's focus our energy on these other opportunities. These other opportunities are a better fit. Even if we win this one, I could see that this is not going to be the best fit. Let's just let this one slide and focus our energy on, these opportunities that are a very good fit. And, that's a hard thing to learn and it's a hard thing to teach. And nobody wants to lose. Everybody wants to win every single, opportunity. But at the end of the day, sometimes you learn, just like we talked about, Chris, is there's some opportunities that maybe aren't the best fit, not only for you, but also for the, for the customers.
Yeah. Um, how do you approach, especially when, it is very tempting to, like you're saying, chase every single deal. But how do you guys gauge, again, as part of your development, um, the for the sales team to truly understand and evaluate what are the right deals versus the deals that maybe aren't so much? Is that something that's your shadowing program when you're trying to develop that? Or, what do
Yes,
you do to develop that skill set in your sales
that, and
team?
we put together questionnaires, so we know now the right questions to ask. You know, do they have a budget?
Yep.
Who's the decision maker? Are we speaking to the decision maker? Is there some type of business reason that's driving this, other than the fact that they want to do this? Is there an impetus that they have to do this? And how good of a fit? So it all comes to down to the initial questionnaires that we complete. We force ourselves to complete because even when you've been doing it for a long time, sometimes you get a little bit sloppy and you forget to ask some, questions. Well, then when it's down on paper and you start to look at it, then you really see whether it's a good fit or it's not
Yeah, I love that approach.
not a good fit. Yeah, yeah. And everybody, listen, I just went through a sales training 2 weeks ago, and I learned something from it, right? You learn something every day, or you learn something that you're not doing. You're like, I knew that. I learned that years ago. Why aren't I doing that? Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And you're like, so going through refresher classes is always great because it just reinforces what you already know and forces you to be, disciplined and not to take shortcuts, but to go through the structured process.
Yeah. I love that you went through sales training with the rest of your team. To me, again, that's
Oh,
another example of leading from the front.
I do it. I'm the first one asking questions. I said, and I have examples. Hey, listen, we had this demo. The demo went bad. We lost control. What did we do wrong? And
Yeah.
we'll bring up examples. Tell me
Yeah.
what we could have done differently. What could I have done, differently here to influence this, situation? Because everybody's been through it. No presentation goes, perfectly. And sometimes you get in presentations and they go sideways. But there's always a reason why it goes sideways, and there's always a reason or something that you could have done differently to have prevented this. So whether it's presenting an agenda in advance, getting them to sign off on an agenda, during the introduction, saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do show tell show. I'm going to explain to you exactly. Hold your questions to the end. We want to get through the flow. If you interrupt us, you're going to lose the continuity. Certain things like that.
Yeah.
So there's things that you can do, and there's techniques that will increase the odds of success, and
Yeah.
that's what you.
Yeah. What's your approach for establishing goals for the sales team?
Oh, yeah. So goals are great, because if you don't have, something to strive for, then then you're not going to be successful. But there's business goals and there's, personal goals. And I tell people, what's a personal goal of yours? Do you want to buy a house? Do you want to buy a car? Do you want something? You want to go on a vacation? Take a picture of that, put it on your desk over the computer so that you look at it every day. So when you sit down in front of your computer and you look at that car and you go, I want that car. I'm going to get that car. The next deal I sell, you're going to be motivated to do it. And it works. And I've done it for myself, right? So, we used to, in the office, have, contests, not even contests, but we would say, what are you buying, when you win the next deal? I'm buying this watch. I'm buying this car. I'm buying this house. I'm going on this vacation. It doesn't matter what it is, but you have to be motivated. There has to be something to drive you, personally. So we tell
Yeah.
people, take a picture, print it out, put it on your desk over your computer. So you have to look at it every day until you get it, and you'll be motivated to get it. And it works. It works. So, we encourage people to do that, and we give them goals and attainment. Hey, listen, Chris, I want you to sell $2 million now, worth of business. Now, can you do that? Yeah, it might be a stretch. So you want a goal that's, high enough to make you have to reach, but not too high so that you'll never reach it and you won't be successful, because then you get discouraged. So it's really a difficult thing, and you kind of have to weigh it so that it's a stretch and you have to work to get it, but it's attainable. Because if it's not attainable, you're going to get discouraged, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, then that's going to be a bigger problem. So like I said, there's business goals and personal goals, but the personal goals will drive those business goals.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I'm 100% on that.
Yeah, and I tell
Um,
my people, listen, I had a guy during COVID, and he actually made more money than I did, based on commission. I was the first person to call him up and congratulate him because he worked his ass off, because during COVID there was nothing to do. So he was working like 80 hours a week. He made more money than I did. And at the end of the year, when we saw how much money he made, they said, hey, Jack made more money than you. I said, congratulations.
yeah.
That's good for me. It's good for the company, and it's
Oh,
great for
yeah.
him. And I was the first one to call him and congratulate him, right?
Yeah.
Whereas most people would have, thought of it the other way. That can't happen. That's absurd. We can't let that happen, right?
Yeah.
But that's a good thing. That's a great thing.
That's a great thing. Yeah. That's the dream, right? Is that all your sales people are outperforming you. To me, that's the dream.
Yeah, it was funny when I was in high school. I dated this girl, and I'm sitting with her father, and his father said, "You know what job? There's only one job where you can make, unlimited amount of money." I go, "What's that?" He goes, "Sales." I looked at him like he's crazy. What is this guy, an idiot? Right? And he was right. He was
Yeah,
right. There's
yeah,
there's one job where you have unlimited salary or earning potential, and that's sales. And you can make as much money as you can earn or you want to
yeah,
earn.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
unlimited.
It
And
is.
and
That's what it's about.
and it's
Shifting the topics a little bit, CRM, do you love it or do you hate it?
oh, I love it and hate it. So here's what I always say, and maybe you'll appreciate this. The best thing about CRM, and especially when I compare it to, ERP or accounting systems, the best thing about CRM, there are no rules. The worst thing, there are no rules. Okay. So so when we go in and implement a financial or accounting system, for a client, there's boundaries. We have to conform to, GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. There's certain ways that things have to be done, and we can guide, the client in a certain direction. With CRM, you walk in, you say, "Okay, what's your sales methodology?" We don't really have one. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, we need to develop a sales methodology. Can I do this? Oh, you can do that. Can you do this? Yes, I could do that. So you're literally saying yes to everything. So it's very hard to get guidelines to force people
yeah,
into, a methodology so that there's some type of, standardization. So we have to do that. So I always say,
yeah,
the best thing about CRM is there are no rules, so we can do whatever you want. The worst thing is there are no rules, so we can do
yeah.
whatever we want. And
Yeah,
and
no, that's the world
there
I
you
live in,
go.
Jeff. And I tell
And there
you,
you go.
that's where, with our methodology, I want to know strategically, what are you trying to do with the business? What are you trying to do to move the needle over the next 3 years? Because I've learned that establishes natural guardrails. That's our focus. We want to drive execution on those goals. If you're worried about something else or looking over here, you're distracted from what you should be focused on. And I've learned that that becomes a natural filter for all the things that we require. People say, "Hey, can we have it do this? Can we have it do that?" Unless it's driving a
Yeah,
strategic goal, no. We'll put it in the backlog, but we're not going to focus on that now. And
right.
that's where you get the rules. You need some guardrails. Otherwise, it truly is the Wild West.
It never ends. Right. It just
No, it
never.
never ends. And I remember I was on a project. This is going back, but they literally requests are coming out of left field all the time, and we're like, why are we even working on this? This has absolutely nothing to, it seemed like every week there was a new priority. Like this is now our top priority. So
Yes.
the whole team is just being whipsawed and we never were really moving things forward. And so that's where that evolved for me and for Impeller is
Yeah, and that's why with CRM they typically use more of an agile
yeah,
methodology,
yeah,
and then when we do ERP implementations, we do more of a waterfall. But we've since moved to more of a hybrid approach because we try to blend the two together, and when we find when we blend the two together, we get more success.
yeah. Jeff, I really appreciate you coming on this show. We're at our time window here for Sales Lead Dog. If people want to reach out and connect with you, if they want to learn more about Q Associates, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, sure. So the best way is directly on our website. So www.queussoc.com, queueassoc.com. It's very easy to find me. So Jay Goldstein at queussoc.com. I have a lot of social media publications. I'm all over the internet. You can find out where in the world is Jeff pretty easily. So if you Google me, you either find myself or you'll find a Dr. Goldstein. So either
Yep.
one is advantageous.
So if you didn't catch any of that, no worries. We have it in our show notes. And you can get that at impellercrm.com/sales lead dog. We'll get not only this episode of Sales Lead Dog, but all our close to 150 episodes now. So be sure to check that out. Reach out, connect with Jeff and Q Associates, and also be sure to subscribe so you get all our future episodes. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on the show and welcome to the Sales Lead Dog Pack.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Have a great day. Bye.
As we end this discussion on Sales Lead Dog, be sure to subscribe to catch all our episodes. On social media, follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Watch the videos on YouTube, and you can also find our episodes on our website at impellercrm.com/Sales Lead Dog. Sales Lead Dog is supported by Impeller CRM, delivering objectively better CRM for business, guaranteed.